What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to episode 40 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's video. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And today, we don't have a super long video, about 15 minutes. We're going to be doing just a tiny bit of work on the entrance to the secondary and tertiary shuttle bays. And then we're going to be working on the struts that connect the pylons to the nacelles on the engines. That is mostly what we're going to be focusing on today, and also clearing up just a little bit of work that we didn't get done in yesterday's episode. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this. Now, I'm actually pretty excited to be getting to this point because we're obviously getting to that territory to start getting into trying to get more of this ship done. And I'm actually pretty excited to build these struts. I honestly don't know what they're called, but I guess that's the only thing that you could call them, is that they're these struts that connect, that pretty much sit between the engines and the pylons. And I actually, oddly enough, I had somebody in the comment section while I was working on first doing the engines mention that I hadn't added them yet, and I just had to put their mind at ease and let them know, like, hey, like, this is coming. So that's going to be something that we're really going to be focusing on today. Now, obviously, you could say I didn't finish clearing up my engines from where we were in yesterday's episode. So if you haven't done that, be sure to finish that up. Now we're going to be moving on to the next portion of today's build. We're just going to be cutting one more back on the shuttle bay, because I just made the decision that it wasn't quite big enough, but I think going one bigger is kind of where I want to be at. Because I want it to look big enough at the end of the day to where if there were a shuttle that we do decide to build out, that it looks like the shuttle bay is big enough that we can get it out. And see, I'm just going straight line back from the sides from where we cut out from our entryway into the shuttle bay. And the old lip of the saucer that's connected to the neck now, at this point, we're going to get rid of that. We're going to go right up to the cut line on the right and just delete straight back. And the axis on the sides, don't worry, we'll address that later. But this is going to open it up quite a bit, and it's going to help to make Shuttle Bay get a better idea of the room that we're going to have to play with, which is the shuttle bays are actually going to be quite big. Yeah, see, that's going to work out really nice. Just when we pan back around, we come back to getting the interior portion of those shuttle bays done. I think you'll be really happy with that. Anyway, let's transition on to the next point in today's episode, and we're going to start to build out these struts. And I'm going a little bit fast today as far as going from one thing to the next, so if you need to, feel free to pause this episode any time to catch up with me, and then just pick up whenever you're ready. Now, you're probably going to notice I'm going to be building out these struts a little gingerly, and my main reason for doing that is, like, I have an idea of what I want to do, but I'm not, like, exactly finalized on it. I know that it needs to go in an angle on the backside, and then it needs to get progressively thinner as we move towards the front of the engine. So you see I'm going with a cut line at an angle just to get an idea of how it looks on the backside. And before I get too far into it, I'm going to do the same thing on the left side engine now. Because remember, I'm following my own rule. If I do one thing on one side, I'm going to do it on the other. I just decided that maybe I went too far out. I want that angle line to be connected to the back of the pylon. So we're just going to bring that back by 1. so far so good. And now we're going to widen this out by 1 block. And then the middle we're going to do 2 wide. See how that looks. I'm trying to make it more of a 3D shape. That's not looking too bad. You really have to try to visualize it, the end result of where you're going. And at this point, we're literally just going to do the same thing that we've done for this whole build when we're starting something out from the beginning. We're just wireframing it out, and then we'll fill it in to make it more of a solid shape. And I've talked a little bit about this, different points in the build so far, but what I try to do when I'm doing these is I try to break down the shape. And when you break down the shape of what you're doing, it becomes a lot easier to build it out, as opposed to just thinking like, okay, well, I'm going to build an engine. Don't necessarily, or the strut that holds the engine, don't think of it like that. Think of, okay, what shape, what kind of shape does that kind of look like? Maybe it kind of looks like, almost like a knife without a handle, like a really thin knife, or something like that. It's kind of the best I got, like, but if one thing that you can't do, or that you can do too, if you can't identify the exact shape that it is, draw it out. This will help you with coming up with that shape also. If you're not great at drawing, another option too, if you have access to a computer, is Photoshop, deleting everything out of the picture that you don't want to see other than that specific area, or just zooming in to see that specific area. But I'm telling you, when you start identifying the shapes on what you're building, it becomes a lot easier to build stuff out, I promise you. That's one of the things that I really didn't start to do on my builds until later on. And when I started adopting that building method, building these ships became quite easy for me. And a combination of identifying the shapes and then using set patterns. This is why a lot of the times it always looks like I'm going off of a blueprint. It's just that I've done so many of these ships that I kind of have a pattern, or all these patterns set in my mind, and I just kind of fall back on them as I'm doing different builds and using my arsenal of different patterns that I've developed over a period of time of building all these ships. And as you start to build more ships, you'll develop this too, I promise you. It's just something that's going to stick with you, because it's repetition. You keep doing it and doing it, it'll stick with you. And that's how it's kind of worked out for me. And I wish that I had all these steps when I first started building, because it would have saved me the hassle of rebuilding my 2009 Enterprise like 5 times. Like, no joke. I've got it in the captain's wheel room on the ship. I've got the commission date. I might actually maybe at one point do another video on that, because I've had people ask me for the 2009 Enterprise to do a tutorial on it, and that's going to be a ship that I am going to revisit at one point, because I think that I can do it better at this point. But I want to, like, when I do finally do that, I'm going to go into the captain's wheel room on my original 2009 Enterprise and look at the commission date. Because I think it was like, it was a couple of years that I was working on this thing, not consistently, you know, every single day, and you're talking off and on over a period of a couple of years. But it took that time frame to develop a lot of these skills, and even further than that, it really wasn't until I got to the refit version of it, the 2016 Star Trek Beyond Enterprise A, that I really started using a lot of the stuff that you see me using today. And I feel like I really refined that when I did the Kelvin build, because the Disco Era Enterprise came out fantastic. The Cerritos, that came out awesome. The Borg Cube, that came out great. When I did the Disco Era, or when I did the Discovery, that came out pretty good. There are a couple of areas that I messed up on, and that's going to be another ship that you're going to see me redo. It won't be the regular Discovery, though. It's going to be the Discovery A, because I have had quite a few people ask for that. but I think at this point my number one build still today is Voyager. So with that being said, you know, if there's a ship that you want to see me do, and if it's any one of those ships I just named off, let me know in the comments section, because I do save that stuff and I use that when I'm looking to build my next ship. So I definitely love to hear from everybody. And of course, don't forget to let me know what rooms you want to see me add on the Enterprise D while I'm still working on this build, because once I move on from this ship, I'm probably not going to come back to it. So now that we've got our outline pretty much identified and set up, it's just a matter of closing it all in, or filling it all in, which we're doing now. We're going to have to clean up the front here a little bit. I'm pretty happy with the sides and the back end of this, but the front here is going to need a little bit of love. I think actually everybody will be pretty happy with how this looks, because I'm not going to lie, when I was done with this particular part of the build, I wasn't expecting it to come out this good, and it hasn't happened every single time during the course of this build. In fact, there have been a few times I've had to revisit things, but this is definitely one of those few cases where I've been able to hit something on the money the first time, and I was actually really happy with how these struts came out. But we are going to mess with the front ends of them a little bit before this episode's over. You can see that we're tapering off the sides here with half slabs to kind of cut the line there going towards the back, and make it all blend in just a little bit nicer. And you see, I didn't do it on the front on purpose because we're going to elongate that a little bit more. This just goes right into that. It's great to have something down, because then once you do, you can look at it and then you can best decide your plan of attack on what to change on it, or what to add to it to make it come out the way that you're thinking of. I'm a very visual person, so for me it's so much better to have something down looking at it, because then it becomes a lot easier to identify what the problems are and what's not working. And then when I do, this is a clear example, it's like, okay, this back end here, that's almost spot on, but the front side needs a little bit of work. Take that and compare it to the 3D model of the Enterprise from the side, and look at what you need to do. That's literally all I do when I'm doing this stuff, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, what I need to change. And we're just going to try something out here. We're just going to go with single blocks first. We might end up stretching that out a little bit on the sides. But really right now what I'm doing is I'm trying to establish the shape first before I commit to making it more 3D like the rest of the strut is. So if I want to keep that pattern going, I might have to make that a little bit wider, at least by one maybe. Now we're just going to fill in the gap. I know that we still have the sea lanterns there. Don't worry, we will come back and get rid of those, and we're actually put in light sources, permanent light sources. That's just there temporarily right now until just so we have our light in this area. Because even right here in the front, it's a little bit dark, but it's not so dark to the point that you won't be able to see. That doesn't look too bad. Might make a slight adjustment to the front, but I think for the most part, that's pretty good. Now what we're going to do, on the second or third row back, on the second cut, on the sides, we're going to do a row of dark gray. And this is going to represent one of the phaser banks the phaser strips that the Enterprise D has. Might come back and do like a lighter gray going around it, um, just to get some more detail there. But for right now, we're just going to do that strip. And again, just following in on that rule that just basically throwing something down to see how it looks. And if we need to, we can always do that. But I've actually, that's the reason why I brought that up, because I've actually been thinking about that recently, that this dark gray strip doesn't look bad, but it's missing something. So even wrapping around the white concrete as a highlight or gray, that could work too, but it definitely needs something. I also need to throw down a light source in that area so you can see it a little bit better. But with that being said, the main focus is those struts that we added. I think that by adding those struts, like, that's pretty spot on with how the Enterprise D looks right in that area. Like, looking at the ship from that angle, of course, you know, we're not done yet. We haven't filled in our saucer section, but I mean, that's the Enterprise D. So I'm pretty happy with the progress that we're making so far. We're in good shape. And yeah, I think that's going to wrap us up today. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you can always catch my new Minecraft builds dropping Tuesdays through Thursdays, usually around 7 p.m. Eastern. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I'll catch you on the next episode.